I'd like to now welcome Rachel Bartholomew to the stage. She is the founder of Femtech Canada, as well as the founder and CEO of Hyivy Health. She is going to give us a little bit of a state of the nation as it relates to Femtech here in Canada.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Oh my gosh, this is such a great room full of friendly faces, and thank you so much for all of you coming out today to have this important conversation, and I promise there's going to be a lot of really great, juicy stuff throughout the day. So my name is Rachel Bartholomew. I'm here to chat a little bit about the state of the nation and where we're at currently in women's health in Canada. And I created Femtech Canada because, frankly, I needed a bunch of other companies like myself to have some therapy with. I was out fundraising. I found out that I was dealing with different challenges than my other life sciences companies when I went out to fundraise. And I wanted to know if others were feeling the same way. So on an Easter long weekend in 2021, I just spent my Easter long weekend with some ham and turkey and researching women's health in Canada. And I found 51 companies at the time and pulled them into a Slack channel, and that was the birth of Femtech Canada. All right, so what is women's health? We're talking about women's health today. Let's set the stage a bit here. So we define it as a branch of medicine that focuses on the treatment and diagnoses of disease and conditions that directly affect, so when we say directly, we're talking gynecology, menopause, things that directly impact that women are unique in their makeup, or disproportionately affect. So think of things like cardiovascular health. Think of things like autoimmune disease. I just actually found out, I was just reading in the bathroom as I was going to the washroom before I came out here. Women don't get CPR because CPR, the dummies that we use don't actually have breasts, so people don't actually know how to properly give CPR to women. So 68% of women will go without CPR. Like, what the heck? Affect women, I'm going off on a tangent, are those who identify as women, physical and emotional well-being. And when we talk about Femtech, we're talking about the technology and the innovation that directly impacts and improves women's health. And we're not just talking all the fancy like AI stuff, right? Like diagnostic therapeutics, really deep tech. We're also including things like consumer goods, home testing, supplements, all of these things that help a woman along her healthcare pathway. So why does this exist? Well, sorry men in the room, but we outnumber you. 50.4% of our population in Canada is women. But yet women were not included in clinical trials in Canada until 1997. And in the US, it was 1993. So we're actually a little bit behind on this. That means that it's actually almost 30 years now, behind in fundamental research that goes into the devices, the drugs, all of the things that we interact with on a day-to-day basis in our healthcare. And this runs deep. So the research that we conduct to then the animal models, which about 19% of the animal models that we test on for devices and drugs are female animals, to the clinical trials we then conduct, which is about 30% or so, that then goes into the data that we use to go and get regulatory approvals. So our regulators are not seeing this data, to then where does that get handed off to? Our reimbursement, right? To the adoption and then the funding that gets supported. Fundamentally, from the very beginning stages of healthcare, we are missing women's data. And that's why, and part and partial, why it remains under-researched, underfunded, and underserved. But yet, we're talking about this $1 trillion number, and now I know it's growing. This market is huge, and it's going to be even bigger by 2027. And it's broken down into these massive markets. So any of my companies in the room, if somebody tells you that women's health is niche, this. Reproductive health, menopause, massive growing market. These are like multi-billion-dollar markets. Chronic conditions, maternal health, cardiovascular, things that disproportionately affect women. And we have unique challenges here in Canada that is different from the rest of the globe. We have rural populations that have trouble getting access to care, where we have things like maternal deserts where women actually go without any pregnancy and maternal care whatsoever. We have an amazing Aboriginal and immigrant population that deserves and requires culturally sensitive care. And we still, to this day, have highly stigmatized areas of healthcare in things like reproductive health, endometriosis, sexual health, where doctors still will not talk to us about these things because they don't know how to address it. So Femtech Canada. We created Femtech Canada to help with this in two ways. First is to support the current companies that exist to get them to the next stage in their growth. The second is to come out to events, go to hospitals, go to innovators, and inspire them to get motivated to fill the white spaces that currently exist in women's health in Canada and beyond. We do this through three things. So we have our ecosystem where we center around the companies and everything revolves around our companies and providing them resources. And we do things like we're doing today, education and advocacy and pulling the room together. And through this work, we've helped establish about 163 Femtech companies. 54% of those were created in the last year. So all my investors, you got a lot of companies coming to you and deal flow coming to you over the next little bit. And we have actually created the third largest Femtech ecosystem in the world. And I know this because I actually run Femtech across borders. So we've pulled together about 80 countries now and their Femtech initiatives. And we have now outpaced France and Israel. So we're just behind now the UK and, I mean, US always. Yeah, we don't talk about them. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about these companies. So 90% of them are female founded. Okay, so big female founder population. And we used to be 50% consumer packaged goods, but recently digital health overtook. So we're about 37% CPG, 43% digital health, and we're staying steady in our deep tech area. You know, I'm a little biased. I want to get us a little bit up there on the research and, you know, med device stuff, but I know it's scary. Our largest innovation areas are menstruation, fertility, and reproductive, so very similar to other areas of the world. We have high growth areas in family tech, menopause, and pregnancy. I am so happy. So when we first started this, we had one menopause company, and they fell through. And I was like, oh no, we have no menopause companies in all of Canada. And then all of a sudden, there was a ginormous boom, and we had a whole bunch of us come out of the ether, which is great. But we still have huge areas of need. Bria, I don't know if they're in the room. They're the only company working on women's mental health in Canada. So better Bria, love you guys. General health, another big one that still needs attention, autoimmune, cardiovascular, some of these other disproportionately affected women conditions. And I'm gonna brag a little bit about the amazingness of our companies. So Molly Surgical was just acquired by Stryker in the breast cancer space. Isle was acquired by Some Days. Nix, we know the big acquisition there. And Cobol, also acquired by Dialogue, who's also, I believe, in the room. 4 major acquisitions since we've pulled Femtech Canada together. Now, we can't claim ownership to all of that, but, you know, just saying. About $250 million in private investments been raised by our companies, but that's only about 12% of our total companies. So 163 companies operating off of very little resources and making huge differences. We've had about 68 clinical research projects. Some of the companies, Affinia, Livemore, 110 plus years of Canadian-based women's health research that's now going into the commercialization section. We filed 75 patents. We've commercialized and manufactured 72 products, and we've created over 1,200 jobs. Like, And 1,200 jobs without raising a lot of money, really, in reality. So there's something to be said. We've got some resilient 90% women in the room. And this is why this is a $27 billion market for women's health in Canada and growing. And I know McKinsey's going to come up and chat after me, and they often share this stat. There's a reason for this stat. For every $1 invested in women's health, we see a $3 projected economic outcome. I mean, look at the jobs we've created. Look at what we've done with very little. We need more problem solvers. We need more innovators. We need more supporters and researchers to get active in this space. It's the reason why we do what we do. To help advance this research, we want to create better products that women can use in their healthcare. We want to service them better, and ultimately we want to break down the stigma. And we want to break down that stigma through this awareness, through the education. I hope every single one of you leave here, share a stat that you learned, and get people interested in wanting to come out and learn more about women's health and get interested in participating. Because as we talk, we know we start to break down those barriers and those walls. When you leave here today, I want you to do two things. The first thing is I want you to ask yourself, how does what you are working on or working with directly or disproportionately impact women? So for my investors in the room, challenging your life science or med tech companies about how they do their research. Has it been equally on men and women? Have the products been tested equally on men and women? For my big corporates in the room, how are you carving out space for women's health in your strategy? For our ecosystem developers in the room, how are you creating resources and space to help this area of healthcare? And my other ask, we would love connections to government that you may have, any connections to your local MPs to continue to just bang on those doors and say, we need your help, Canada and the Canadian government. Let's move this forward into the 21st century. Thank you all for being here today. Pass back off to Karen.